3, go. Hello, good night. Welcome to our Seniors Real Estate Services video series. This is episode number 3 from our series number 4. I'm Sandra Roman. Welcome everybody, and as always, I'm here with my friend Denise. Hi Denise, how are you today?
I'm very good. How are you, my dear?
Beautiful.
Good. Okay, so we welcome everyone to the show. Anybody that's not been here before, we started doing this broadcast for to get out information to our senior community, and we are joining.
Hi, Jan. Sorry. Continue, Denise. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
We are joining with different resources from the community that for seniors, and giving you some information so that you have contact information if you should ever need it. Just offering this as a resource and having a little fun, meeting everyone and getting to know all these people out there that you might not know exist and that could help you if you had the need. Denise Lanzarone with Keller Williams Realty. I am a senior real estate specialist. So we are joining up with a lot of senior resources in events and these shows just to get information out there and create a little network of senior people that can help you guys if you need it.
Where can they find you, Denise?
They can find me on Facebook and Denise Lanzarone, your agent for life, and Instagram, Denise Lanzarone, and LinkedIn, Denise Lanzarone.
Hi, Susan. Hi, Dania. Hi, Jean. Remember, we are live on Facebook, and this time only on Facebook. On my Facebook page, Sandra Roman Real Estate, and on Denise's page, Denise Lanzarone, your agent for life, right? And follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and all that good stuff as Sandra Roman Real Estate. And today we have a very special guest. Who is our guest today?
So today we have Megan Chagrell with us, and she is the Vice President of the CDPAP services at Community Care, Home Care Services. And she is going to explain to you what that is. We can bring her on.
Let me bring her on.
There she is.
Hi,
Megan.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for the warm introduction. And I'm just going to say my last name is pronounced Shergill, as in sharing information.
Oh,
I gotcha.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for the warm welcome, ladies, and the invitation to share this knowledge and education. So I can't see, how many participants there are, but I imagine that perhaps when people start having questions that Denise or Sandra, you can then pepper in and interrupt me if people have questions.
Well, but I'm going to interrupt you. I work at...
Go ahead. Oh, yes. Wonderful. So my name is Vice President of CDPAP Services, and I work at Community Care, Home Health Services. If you are familiar with the healthcare industry, there's tons of acronyms, and CDPAP happens to be one of the many acronyms, CDPAP. It stands for the Consumer Directed Personal Assistance Program. And I can't see anyone's faces, unfortunately, but this is typically the time that I ask, by a show of hands, who has heard of CDPAP services before? So I'll let people enter into the chat. Yes, there you go, Denise. So you've heard of CDPAP. This is because you know me as the CDPAP girl. I live it, I breathe it, I eat it. No, but still, I'm all about the CDPAP. So without any further ado, I would love to share my screen if possible. Just bear with me 1 second, because then I think it'll be a little bit better if you can see a little bit what it is that I'm talking about. Hold on one second. Can you see my screen?
Nope.
Okay, hold on. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. How about now?
Oh, nope.
Can you see? You can't see my screen?
Nope.
No.
Oh.
Now
wait,
you can see
there it is.
Then we're going to go without
it.
it. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, good. So we'll keep it here. Okay. So community care. I like to say that community care has this we care culture. And if you haven't had the entertainment of getting to know me yet, you're going to get to know me very well tonight. And you'll see that we exude the we care culture at community care. So like I said, community care is a home care agency. We service all of Long Island, Westchester County, the 5 boroughs of New York City, Monroe and Erie County. And we provide home care services to the aging population as well as the special needs population. And we really pride ourselves in being community advocates and educators, because I think we can all agree that we can all benefit from knowing what our choices are when it comes to home care services. And I think we can all agree that ultimately when it comes, time for all of us to age, I think we would all prefer to age in place in the privacy and the privacy and the empowerment and independence of aging within your own home rather than going to a facility setting. So what we do here at Community Care is we simply just provide you all of your options that are available to you to hopefully age in place, age at home. So to go back to what is CDPAP, and can you ladies just confirm that you can still see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So CDPAP, one of the beautiful acronyms in home care, it stands for the Consumer Directed Personal Assistance Program. So what does that mean? So when an individual is approved with Medicaid, once they have Medicaid approval, they have the option of opting into CDPAP home care services, in which they can hire loved ones to be their caregivers. So you may have seen commercials for this before or heard radio commercials with a fun jingle on it, but it is being more well known as of recently that this is an option where an individual, like let's say, mom, for example, who needs care at home, she could essentially hire her adult child to prepare her or to act as her caregiver to assist her with things like activities of daily living, like grooming, dressing, bathing, toileting, meal preparation, etc. So typically people think of CDPAP as the home care option in which someone like the aging population hires a family member to be their caregiver, known as a personal assistant in this program. But it does not have to be a family member. It could be a friend. It could be a church member. It could even be an adult grandchild who cares for mom. So there's a lot of great benefits, and the special needs population specifically loves this program. And I actually started my career working direct care with children with autism. They love this program because once an individual with special needs is 21 years old, then their parent can be approved to be their caregiver and get paid to be their caregiver through Medicaid, which is, I think, such a beautiful thing because it's such a labor of love, and might as well let them get paid to do the work that they're already doing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Ladies, have any questions come in so far? Isn't that cool? I always say it's not hard to get people excited about CDPAP services. My pain point is just simply letting them know that it's an option available to them. So are there any questions that have come in so far?
I'm having a little trouble with my chat,
No?
so I don't know.
No problem. No
That's
problem.
That's okay. At the
No
end,
questions.
okay. At the end, I'm going to also share my contact information, of course. So I recommend that when a question arises, jot it down, and you can always email me after the fact. Okay. So now we're just going to dive into how did CDPAP, the Consumer Directed Personal Assistance Program, start? It actually started in New York State in the 1970s by a group of individuals who were physically disabled, but considered to be alert and oriented. And they wanted to essentially be their own boss of their home care services. So these individuals had diagnoses such as MS, or they were paralyzed, but they wanted to instead be their own boss. They were alert and oriented and self-directing. And so they said, no, we don't want the agency's input. We don't want the home care agency sending us, essentially a stranger, but a certified caregiver to work with us. We want to be able to be our own boss and hire people already that we know, love, and trust to be our caregivers. So since it started in New York State in the 70s, a consumer-directed home care model has since flourished in every single state in the United States. Does anybody have any guesses of what state actually has the highest volume of consumer-directed home care services?
New York State.
I would hope so, but that's actually not the case. It's a good guess.
Really?
And that's why I'm on my crusade
Florida.
to let people know about CDPAP, because it started. You said Florida?
Florida.
One would think because of the high aging population in Florida,
Texas.
right? And then the other guess that I typically get is Texas is big, right? They go big or go home in Texas. A lot of people guess California because it's very progressive, that state. It's actually Washington State.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting? I don't know. No one knows why. Washington State. And every state has a different title for their consumer-directed home care model. California's is actually BYOC, Bring Your Own Caregiver. Isn't that cute?
I like it.
So, is that cute? So,
Yeah.
CDPAP, to me, it makes me very upset knowing that it started in New York State, but not enough people know about it. So that's why I do my community outreach such as this, just to let people know that it's an option. And we're going to dive into, perhaps it's not the right option for everyone, right? But at the very least, people should know that it is an option that they could choose from, right? So as I mentioned before, the aging population really loves CDPAP. The physically disabled population loves it because that's actually how it started. So people with MS, paralyzed individuals, things like that, special needs. But then even beyond that, the pediatric population, think of like a medically fragile child who perhaps has tracheotomy needs or feeding tube needs or wound care or medication administration needs. Within the scope of practice, meaning what the caregivers are permitted to do in CDPAP is actually much more than what a home health aide is permitted to do in traditional home care services. And you may ask, well, why is a trained certified caregiver not permitted to do ostomy care, tracheotomy care, medication administration? As per New York State, they're just not allowed to. It's not within their scope of practice. They are only to assist individuals physically with activities of daily living, like I mentioned before, grooming, dressing, bathing, meal preparation, etc. However, the personal assistant, meaning the caregiver in CDPAP, they are allowed to do that heightened level of care known as some skilled nursing services, like the wound care, medication administration, etc., because the consumer or the individual receiving the home care services takes on the responsibility of training the caregivers in this program. So the onus is on the consumer to train the personal assistant, to train the caregiver. And that's why they're allowed to do that heightened scope of practice. So that then brings me back to why I say not everyone's right for this program, because generally speaking, if you are not a type A personality and you don't do well with having a lot of responsibilities, perhaps training and supervising your caregivers is not a responsibility you want to take on, right? But at least then you have traditional home care services to choose from. So it's just interesting to have both, compare and contrast. So I've said a lot of words so far. So now I'm just going to kind of dive into the definitions of who's who in this program. The consumer, when we say the consumer directed personal assistance program, is the client, the individual receiving the home care services. Then there's someone called the designated representative. That person is someone who takes on the responsibilities of being the boss of the program, if not for the consumer. So for instance, let's just use Denise and Sandra as examples. Let's just say in this scenario that Denise is not alert and oriented. Perhaps Denise has a diagnosis of dementia, God forbid. She obviously would not be able to choose her caregivers, train her caregivers, supervise their work, or coordinate their schedules, which is the responsibilities of being your own boss in this program, right? So in this case, then Sandra, who's a friend, it doesn't have to be a family member, as long as that person is over the age of 18 and willing to accept the responsibilities of being the boss, Sandra can act as the designated representative and take on those responsibilities. Isn't that pretty cool?
Yeah.
So I always say, right? So let's now say that Denise is alert and oriented and self-directing, and she doesn't have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia, but she's really overwhelmed. She could still have Sandra act on her behalf as a designated representative to be the boss in this program, just because she doesn't necessarily have to be, have a status of like not alert and oriented, so to speak. And then, of course, we dive into who the caregiver is. They're known as personal assistants in this program, which I think is pretty cool. Who doesn't want to have a personal assistant? Am I right?
I do. I want one.
Right? and then there's the term fiscal intermediary. So you may be asking, Community Care, the home care agency that I work for, if we are helping people enroll into CDPAP services and the consumer acts as the boss and hires the caregivers, trains the caregivers, coordinates their schedules, and monitors their work, what is it that the home care agency does? Simply put, the home care agency, meaning Community Care, processes the payroll for the caregivers, the personal assistants, so that the consumer or that designated representative can be freed up to act as the boss, kind of like front of the house boss directing their services. Any questions so far?
No, I think we're good. I had a question
Nice.
about,
and so, go ahead.
I had a question about the children with special needs, but they have to be on Medicaid, correct?
Correct. And we're actually going to dive into that in maybe a slide or two.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people ask, what's the minimum age that someone has to receive CDPAP services? We have 2-year-olds that we service, and we have 107-year-olds that we service. So all they have to have is Medicaid, and individuals within the special needs population typically enroll into something called a Medicaid waiver program.
Right.
Something like a OPWDD, the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, or the TBI, Traumatic Brain Injury Waiver Program, or the NHTD, which is known as the Nursing Home Transition and Diversion Waiver Program. So those individuals, perhaps like, I know what you're thinking, Denise, like, those children, how could they have Medicaid? They typically enroll into a waiver program to get them through that line quickly because they warrant the services, of course. But yeah, so So what I mentioned previously was we service children who receive CDPAP services, and a lot of people are under the misinterpretation, thinking that a special needs individual has to be 21 years old to enroll into CDPAP, because that's when their parent can get paid to be their caregiver. But you can have your 2-year-old son or daughter be receiving services, CDPAP services. And instead of the parent being the caregiver, why not the aunt? Why not the grandparent who's already helping? Why not a family friend? Or why not an adult sibling? So true story, we actually have an individual who is 19, and obviously he's not 21, so his parents can't yet be the caregivers, but his adult sibling who is 24 is his caregiver. And when you think about it, these individuals I just mentioned, the siblings, the grandparents, the aunts, the family friends, they're already typically stopping by to help in some way, whether it's with meal preparation or light housekeeping or toileting. Might as well clock in and get paid for it. And to the same point, think about mom. So like for instance, or I'll use an example from my own grandmother. When my grandmother was still with us, I wish I had known about CDPAP, because I was already stopping by after my 9-to-5 job to check in on her, prepare her meals, get her ready for bed, do a bed bath, things like that, toileting. I could have been clocking in to get paid to do that. And it doesn't mean that I have to quit my day job. It just means that you can earn supplemental income for doing something you're already doing, which is so great. So why do families love, right? So why do families love CDPAP? Because it empowers individuals to be their own boss, and it encourages independence, privacy, autonomy. And a common question that we receive is, what training or certification do the personal assistants, the caregivers, need? None. They don't need any training or certification, because it's either the consumer or that designated representative that takes on the responsibility of training and monitoring the work of the caregivers. And as of now, New York State Department of Health does not require that caregivers go through a criminal history record check, like a background check, and they don't require that they complete a drug screen. So some other home care agencies do put it in their policies, like their own internal policies, to do those things. But you should know, at the very least, that New York State doesn't require it. So I always encourage families to shop around. And just for you to know, community care does not implement the background checks or the drug screens. And people sometimes feel a little bit polarized either way, but I'll give you an example. Think about an adult grandchild who perhaps wants to care for grandma. But maybe he's gotten into a little bit of trouble, a little bit of criminal history. If grandma trusts him and has vetted him and obviously knows him and trusts him, she could hire him to be her caregiver, no questions asked, even if he has a background, a positive background check. Same thing with the drug screen. Everyone's very polarized right now with certain, types of drugs or whatever. No matter how you feel, the good thing, about CDPAP is that ultimately it's the consumer or the designated representative that sets the criteria. So they could say, I don't want someone who does drugs. Or they could say, I'm all right if they do X, Y, and Z. And to the same point, if I were a consumer receiving CDPAP services, let's say I was trying to find a personal assistant beyond my own family or circle of, friends or neighbors, I could have my own criteria and say, you know what, I'm going to go on Facebook and I'm going to make a post on a Facebook group, longislandmoms.com or Long Island Moms Facebook. And I'm going to say, looking for an excellent caregiver with 5 years of experience being a caregiver, or I want them to maybe to have an LPN certification, so I can have my own criteria. It doesn't mean that they can't be certified, but at the very least, they don't have to be certified. And so that little third area that you see on my screen, the scope of practice, like I mentioned earlier, allows the caregivers, the personal assistants, to do some skilled nursing tasks like medication administration. So think about an individual who requires insulin injections, eye drops, maybe medication like grinded in like, their in their drink at the end of the night. I know a lot of special needs individuals sometimes have that. In addition, we service like a lot of individuals who have seizure disorders. And I know from experience when I used to work with children with autism that when they have that episode, sometimes they need that rescue, like nasal emergency medication. And unless they have CDPAP services, a home health aide on the traditional home care side would not be permitted to administer that rescue medication. They would actually get disciplined for doing so if they did that.
Wow.
So isn't that interesting that with CDPAP, you actually can? So that's why I always loved, and then obviously the medically fragile, population, whether it's a child or an adult, the tracheotomy needs, the feeding tube, the ostomy care, the list goes on. Also, the really great thing that really empowers individuals who have CDPAP services is the fact that when Medicaid approves the amount of home care hours for an individual, so let's say Sandra receives approval to receive CDPAP services and Medicaid grants her 40 hours a week. Did you know that she's going to be granted a weekly bank of hours, meaning it's not specified. So they're not telling Sandra it has to be Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, only with CDPAP, not traditional home care, but only with CDPAP. Sandra can say, you know what? I don't want any services on Monday, but I want 12 hours on Tuesday and maybe only 2 hours overnight on Wednesday, and then a lot of hours on the weekends. As long as it doesn't go over the authorized weekly bank of hours, she can change it every week as she pleases, which is so great. And then the last little bullet point is
so does someone keep track of that? Like they have to like clock in or send in their hours or something?
I love that question. That's a great question. There's something called the 21st Century Cures Act. It's actually a federal law that was implemented a few years ago, and it requires that any caregivers who work under a Medicaid program, such as CDPAP, so the personal assistants are the caregivers working under CDPAP, it requires that the caregivers clock in and clock out using electronic visit verification. So the caregivers have two options. They can either clock in and clock out using either the consumer's cell phone or the consumer's house phone by just dialing a toll-free number, so it doesn't cost anything. Or they can use their own cell phones and clock in using an app that has like a GPS locator to verify shifts worked. Because as you can imagine, almost, to your point, Denise, there's a lot of, unfortunately, this program has a lot of fraud because it's usually family caring for family. So in the past, before, federal law really cracked down on this, people would say, oh yeah, I worked with my son, little Johnny, 30 hours last week, and I'm going to submit a timesheet for it. But, unless you clocked in and clocked out, where's the proof type of thing? So it is federal law that they clock in and clock out, but it couldn't be easier to clock in and clock out.
But if they're living with the person, then they would just have to remember to clock in and out, right? So if they're there all the time.
Correct. So I usually recommend to families that they set an alarm on their cell phone.
Yeah.
Or that they put a Post-it note near like the fridge like to clock in, or near their coffee machine type of thing.
Yeah.
But it works though. So now I'm going to dive in. I know that this is typically for the aging community, but just because I brought up the special needs community, just very briefly, I'll just talk about it. So the special needs community, typically when an individual is approved for Medicaid services, they have a Medicaid budget for something called Sandra and Denise, have you ever heard of self-direction before?
No.
So self-direction has a very similar theme to CDPAP, and they come out of two separate Medicaid budgets. So self-direction allows the parent of a special needs child, even if the child is, of like adult age, it allows the parent to have a budget for that child and allocate that budget for different things, like perhaps like an art program or like a speech program or water therapy, or like horseability, like doing things that are very therapeutic. So self-direction, the parent is provided a budget to allocate those funds. And then CDPAP is very similar in its theme because it allows either, the parent or the individual themselves to be their own boss and direct their own services. So a lot of people are under the misconception in the special needs community that the CDPAP budget comes out of the self-direction budget, and that's not the case. And so a lot of people have been apprehensive to even look into CDPAP services, thinking that it was going to eat into their budget, but it's two separate things. And I always say that they complement each other. And if you love self-direction, you're really going to love CDPAP services. And then, part of those different services in self-direction are things like respite services and community rehabilitation. So if anyone has any questions about the special needs community and how it can benefit, individuals with special needs, just feel free to reach out to me after this, because I don't want to obviously talk too much about it, because this is really for the aging population. We'll skip this. So who is right for CDPAP services? If you remember in the beginning, I said not everyone's right for CDPAP services. So if you're easily overwhelmed, perhaps this is not the program for you. If you're not a type A personality and not organized, not the right program for you. But otherwise, anyone who wants to have more independence and autonomy and privacy, it's a great program for you. Anyone who wants to hire someone already that they know, love, and trust to be their caregivers should consider CDPAP services. And of course, that special needs individual, once they are 21 years old, the parent can be hired to be their caregiver, which is such a beautiful thing. I'm sure, Sandra and Denise, you've heard of the staffing shortage right now in New York State, or the caregiver crisis, as I affectionately call it. CDPAP solves that issue, because think about people living on the eastern end of Long Island in a rural community. It's very hard to get home health aides out to those areas because of lack of public transportation. The majority of them take public transportation. So instead, consider an individual enrolling into CDPAP services. They can either hire someone already living within the home to be their caregiver, hire their neighbor, or just find someone who lives close by. It's such a great resource for individuals. Obviously, we talked about that greater scope of practice that includes all those things listed on the slide. And then anyone who wants to have more flexibility week to week in regards to their schedules. Who wouldn't want that? We have individuals that perhaps want to go out. The whole purpose of a home care program is to keep people within their communities rather than in a facility setting. So we have individuals who use a lot of their hours only on the weekends because they want to go to things like festivals or the movies. That's the whole purpose of it. Get people out, get them infiltrated in the community, and let them feel their independence back, so to speak. So it's a really great program.
If you were in a living in a Medicaid-based facility, like an assisted living or a group home or something like that, could you use this?
Good question. Medicaid will only ever pay for either home care services or for that facility setting.
Okay.
However, think of it this way. We actually have an individual, we have many, but just one instance, we have an individual who lives at the Atria. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. And the individual is approved for Medicaid, meaning that they, applied for Medicaid. They probably did like a spend down, a pooled income trust, something. The individual is approved for Medicaid. However, the family pays for room and board, right? They pay privately. In that case, they live in a facility, but they can receive Medicaid home care services because the individual has Medicaid. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Okay. So then 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. How do we get started? It can be easier. So our team at Community Care prides ourselves in being not only community advocates and educators, but very responsive. Denise, I think you can attest. I'm very responsive, even after business hours. Yes. I think this speaks volumes. It's 7:30 at night, you know. But so how to get started? How to get started? So first, of course, because this is a Medicaid-funded home care program, the individual has to get Medicaid approved. If you need assistance getting connected to specialists or, you know, special needs attorneys or elder law attorneys who can help you with applying for Medicaid, we have a hub of resources for you. No problemo. So first, you have to have Medicaid. Next, you have to call an organization called NIA, another acronym, NYIA. Sandra and Denise, have you ever heard of NIA before?
No.
So NIA stands for the New York Independent Assessor. It's an independent organization in New York State, of course, that its only purpose is to assess individuals to see if, one, they're appropriate for home care services, because not everyone's appropriate or can receive services safely within their homes. Think about like a hoarder or, you know, someone who just has like a not safe living situation. So they assess individuals to see if they're appropriate for home care services. And then number two, they assess to see how many hours they're going to approve the individual. So once you're approved for Medicaid, then you call NIA to schedule 2 assessments to see if you're eligible for home care and then how many hours you're going to get approved. What our team does at Community Care is I personally helped prepare families prior to that nursing assessment with NIA, so that you are better prepared with how to answer the nurse's questions while being honest, of course, but to best tell mom or dad's story to hopefully get the best outcome, aka the highest amount of hours, because you really only get one shot to say things the right way. And God forbid you don't say things the right way. They are more inclined to keep the amount of hours that they approve low, because candidly speaking, right now, New York State is in a Medicaid deficit. So they're getting a lot of pressure to approve lower amounts of hours rather than higher amounts. So I always recommend, at the very least, touch base with me prior to having those assessments so I can best prepare you. And we've been very successful with getting families high amounts of hours. And then at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see an email address, independent.assessor@health.ny.gov, that I can even share the slide deck with everyone after the fact if you want, that you can email complaints about NIA. If God forbid they don't approve you for a high amount of hours and you want to talk to someone about it from New York State Department of Health. You can always appeal, but appealing is just a very lengthy process.
Well, you also have the seniors or whoever that say, "Oh, I can do that. Oh, I can do that. I'm okay," you know, and then they're not going to get what they need. Yeah.
Denise, you hit the nail on the head. That's one of the things that I prepare families for. I say, for this purpose alone, do not let mom speak on behalf of herself, because the nurse will try to get mom to answer the questions. And she may say something like, you know, "Mrs. Smith, are you able to tie your shoes?" And Mrs. Smith will say, "Of course I can," out of pride. But we know for years she hasn't been able to tie her shoes, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So exactly. So that's one of the many things that I go over with families. So, okay. So this is a very important slide. The first bullet point is more for the special needs population. So if it applies to you, you can always reach out to me after. But the purpose of this slide is, Denise and Sandra, do you have any guesses of how many home care agencies in New York State alone there are?
I don't know. I mean, I know of a lot of them, so there must be a lot.
Aim high, ladies. It's 800.
Oh, wow.
Wow. 800. There's 800 home care agencies alone in New York State. Are all of them very good? No. Okay. But what this slide is encouraging you to do is do your due diligence to research the home care agency prior to enrolling into CDPAP services. So did you know that as of now, there's no application process or licensing process to become a CDPAP home care agency? Why is that concerning? because I could say tomorrow, Sandra, you want to open up a CDPAP agency? Sure. And all of a sudden we start business. We open it out of our basement.
Wow.
That's concerning because how do you know that Sandra and I, in this scenario, are doing things by the books, that we're doing the proper payroll processes for the caregivers, that we're following the rules, regulations, and responsibilities set forth by New York State Department of Health. And if we're not licensed and certified, because no CDPAP home care agency is, how does New York State know that we're even on their radar to come in to audit us? Right? So why do I mention this? Community Care is a CDPAP home care agency, but we're also a licensed home care agency providing traditional home care services. So what does that mean? That we are on the books with New York State Department of Health. We did have to apply and get licensed and certified to service certain counties throughout New York State. So that should give you peace of mind, if you should choose to start doing some research about different home care agencies, that we're doing things the right way, because we know, at least on an annual basis, New York State is coming in to look through our files, to look through our books. So that should make you feel better. In addition, I would encourage you to do a Google search of our agency, to look at reviews from real community members, whether it's families, caregivers, or even professionals like Sandra and Denise. If you do a search of community care, home health services, Smithtown, because that's where our corporate office is, you'll see that we have, I think as of today, 135 reviews and a 4.6 out of 5-star rating, which is extraordinarily good, because we know that people typically only leave reviews when they're dissatisfied. So that's really good, something to be very proud of. Additionally, you always want to look at the different social media platforms for the different home care agencies, because where home care is an industry of give me, give me, give me. They just want your business. As opposed to community care, I'm not telling you to sign up with us. I'm telling you what your options are. I'm educating you. I'm empowering you. I'm advocating for you. If you search for us on Facebook, Denise is linked with me. God bless her, on Facebook and LinkedIn. She sees my posts every day. And Instagram, you'll see all the information that we're providing is education based. It's not about come join us. It's about here's what your options are and you deserve to know.
Yeah. Great.
So this is, what you see right here now is a couple of screenshots of some of our recent reviews. This screenshot was from about a month ago, so it only has 102 reviews rather than 135, and we've gone up to a 4.6 out of 5 stars. But these are real reviews from real people. And I don't know if you know, you can't pay for people to leave reviews, right? You can't edit the reviews. And like I said, people typically only leave reviews when they're dissatisfied. So I think this speaks volumes. My contact information here is listed here. You could email us simply at cdpap@communitycarehhs.com, which stands for Home Health Services. And you can call our toll-free number. We have 24/7 services. So you'll always reach an individual, not a call center, but a member of our team, even after business hours. And then something I wanted to share with all of you, Denise and Sandra, have you ever heard of a website called Simply CDPAP?
Nope.
So I just learned of this website earlier this week. It's an independent website. Literally, it's just www.simplycdpap.com. And how we learned about it was a family called, and we always ask, oh, great, how did you hear about us? And they said, oh, simplycdpap.com. And I clutched my purse thinking, is that a good website? Is that a bad website? What is that website? Apparently, it's an independent website. Yeah, it's an independent website that rates different CDPAP agencies. It compares all of the big ones, including us. So when community care started back in the 90s, I believe, first our name was Community Care Companions. So we're listed, unfortunately, as Community Care Companions, but it is still Community Care Home Health Services. The address is the same. You see on your screen, our contact information is the same. We're the same company. What they do is they rate all the different agencies like Freedom Care, Edison Home Care, Bragg's Home Care, among some other ones, as well as us, all the big ones. Can I tell you that they rate us based on the pay rate and benefits for the caregivers, which is so important because in this program, the caregivers are family members typically or loved ones, right? So you always want the best benefits and pay rates for the caregivers. In addition, on the right-hand side of your screen, they show the percentage of like legal or lawsuit issues that they had, any Better Business Bureau reviews or complaints, Google reviews. And I'm happy to tell you, and I encourage you to look yourselves, that of all of the home care agencies they review on this website, we are the only CDPAP home care agency that they highly recommend. Every other one has a rating of average or does not recommend.
Wow.
So I'm so proud of that. And I think, and Denise, I know you know members of our team and how like dedicated and passionate we are. And I hope you can see that tonight my passion for this program is palpable. I think it speaks volumes. And, you know, I'm just so encouraged knowing that this website hit the nail on the head and sees that we are, you know, we truly love what we do. So that concludes my slide deck. Does anybody have any questions?
That's awesome. That was awesome. Lots of great information. I'm just checking.
Hi, Kim. We didn't say hi to Kim.
I'm not seeing the chat at all.
Because you are on private chat, you need to go to comments.
I don't see it.
It's right there, comments.
Not on my screen. I don't know what you're doing. It's just different this week.
Well, regardless. Well, I was going to recommend, regardless, ladies, if you have a list of participants after the fact, perhaps you can provide them my contact information.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I usually reach out to everyone. I don't know who's here though, but
Jean says that she doesn't have any questions. Thank you. This has been very informative.
But how come I can't
see here? And even if you don't have my contact information, guys, like I said, just simply Google Community Care Home Health Services, Smithtown, and you'll see our website, our Google business reviews, our contact information, and you can even email us after business hours, and we're always responsive. So happy to help.
Great.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Denise can't read the comments, but I can.
I can't read the comments. I don't. It says private chat, and then it says report.
Any other comments, Sandra? Good, bad, ugly? What we got?
No, just say hi, Kim. It's Kim, and then Denise says any questions, and that's it. Ismael Arevalo. Hi, Ismael. He sends a hello, and we have Dania and Sue, and that's it.
All right.
Not really.
And that's great. So, yeah, I'll let everybody know your contact information, and if they have any questions, they can email you or call you, right? But that was very informative.
Yes, and I encourage. I encourage it. Denise, I love you had some great questions, and I hope it's okay that I used you both as examples.
That's fine. I don't know if I want Sandra doing my deciding who's going to take care of me now.
She's disoriented. Don't listen to her.
Right.
I don't know about that, but okay. No, that was
She's
fine.
disoriented. Don't listen to her.
But you know what? That's really scary that there are places out there that don't need anything and could just open up, and I that blows me away. That's pretty scary.
If you go to the Brooklyn area, if you throw a stone down any street, you'll hit 5 CDPAP home care agencies.
Wow.
Just because of, population density, they pop up everywhere. And that's why I always say, like, you have to be careful, because God forbid, this is a Medicaid funded program. God forbid you sign up with an agency that's not doing things the right way. They could not only come after, meaning New York State, could come after the home care agency, but also the family. If God forbid they weren't using electronic visit verification like they should, and money would have to be paid back. It could be a whole thing. So
Wow.
always do your due diligence and make sure that whoever you sign up with is knowledgeable. Hoping I proved tonight I'm pretty knowledgeable. So
yes, you did.
make sure you do that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Susan says, great information. Thank you.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, Denise, what's next week?
Next week, we are having a special Valentine's episode on Wednesday night.
That's true.
And Lily and her friend, I'm not sure of her friend's name, are going to talk to us about dating after the age of 50. Or 60, I'm not sure. But
it's exciting. Very exciting.
5 or something?
Well, yeah. Both of them, well, they'll tell their stories, but
yeah,
they ended up dating.
They found love after.
Yes,
50.
they ended up dating, later in life, and they want to talk about it. I know
about all the adventures.
So we thought it would be fun to do that for right after Valentine's Day. Then we are taking a break.
Oh, we are? Okay.
For 1 week, because I'm going to be away.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to be actually flying at the time of the show. And then we'll have 2 more shows after that. We have a couple of events coming up. We are going to be at Sunrise Assisted Living in East Setauket on March 8th, having a senior luncheon. And then beginning of April, we're going to be back at Brightview in Sayville. And we're going to talk about spring cleaning and real estate.
Ooh.
So we got a couple events coming up, and we're going to be planning our end of season happy hour like we've been doing. It seems to be very successful. Everyone seems to like to go out and have a drink. So we'll do that as well. So thank you all for coming.
That's it. Follow us everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, and whatever. Denise Lanzarone, your agent for life. Sandra Roman Real Estate. And Miss Megan, what's your Instagram?
I just realized I spelled my name wrong. It is just one N, please.
That's on you.
I thought I spelled it wrong, but
so please. No. So please, honestly, connect with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, connect with Community Care. Even if home care is not in the cards for you right now or for your loved one right now, you should never make a decision in regards to home care, when you have that sense of urgency, when something terrible happens, like mom has fallen or mom's getting discharged from the hospital. You should always do your research prior. So I encourage you, and I think you both can attest, you should do it sooner rather than later. Just know what your options are.
You never know what's going to happen. Yep.
Exactly. Well, see you next week. Adios.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you so much, ladies. Have a great evening, everyone. Take care.
Too.
Yeah, see you soon.